Good morning on this Sunday, November 17th, and welcome to the Georgia Gang. Turmoil at the top of the Democratic Party in Georgia after Donald Trump's victory. Also, the U.S. Justice Department releases a scathing report about the horrendous conditions at the Fulton County Jail. And the March of Dimes gives Georgia an F when it comes to the rate of premature births across the state. Melita, Phil, Theron, and Martha are all here. The debate and discussion begin right now.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia Gang starts now.
This week, elections officials in all 159 Georgia counties certified the election results. Democrats started pointing the finger, some targeting Congresswoman Nikema Williams. The AJC citing sources that Senator Jon Ossoff called her after the election and urged her to step down as chair of the Democratic Party as he gears up for the 2026 re-election fight. Theron, to you first this week. You talked about the 5 L's last week when it comes to Democrats. What is the scoop now in these Democratic circles?
Well, we're still at the first L, honestly. And we got to accept the loss. And we figured out the cause of the loss and what could we've done differently and what could we've done better. So as we kind of knew last week, we didn't report on it because, I didn't want to, rain on Trump's parade, as Phil reminded me.
Thank you.
Is that there was apparently a conversation that was had between our senior senator, Jon Ossoff, chairwoman of the Democratic Party of Georgia, Nikema Williams. That conversation transpired and it went public because the Congresswoman sent some text messages out. We have not heard yet from Jon Ossoff publicly, but he has been making calls. He's been talking to folks on background. So what I would like to say about this, Lori, because you've taught me this in media training, just get to the point, right? Let's start with Nikema Williams. This is a woman who is a U.S. Congresswoman. I've had my challenges with her in the past. You all know I went on the record about how the transfer of power in John Lewis's seat was not handled appropriately. However, she's been our chair of the Democratic Party since 2019. Have had some wins and we've had some losses. And so you got to make sure you honor her and give her that time. However, Georgia wasn't the only state that lost last Tuesday. We lost every single battleground state and we got very close. And so I want to start off by thanking her and really identifying that she was an effective leader for a certain amount of time. Moving forward, I do think we need change. And I think that's what Senator Ossoff was asking for. How he went about it, Lori, would have not been something I would have recommended. I think you had to give everybody at least 72 hours. It was a private conversation that went to text. And, Nikema has an opportunity and a right to defend herself. Going forward, this is what I think should happen. I think that we should have a meeting because we're still in the first L. We got to accept the loss. And then we got to go to the second L, which is what? Listen. And I think everyone needs to get in a room, talk about what happened. Senior Democrats, right? Not everybody. The senior Democrats represents all ethnicities, all geographical areas of the state, all interest groups, electeds, non-electeds, consultants, and get in a room and figure out who the next leader should be. Jon Ossoff shouldn't put up a slate. We should basically have this conversation. It'll be a hard conversation. And then how we come together as a party, listen, accept the loss, and move forward.
All right, hold on. I want to skip over to Melita because we're talking about Democratic strategy. Trump got almost 120,000 more votes than Kamala Harris. So how do Democrats gear up for 2026? I mean, what should the strategy, Melita, be going forward?
Well, I think Theron has a great point. We need to listen, especially to the groups who did not turn out, and we need to strategize, prioritize, organize, and then mobilize. And, politicians are going to point fingers. And I just wish, as a Democrat, that all the finger pointing had been done inside the tent with the flaps down in a closed meeting and let people vent and figure out a solution before they started pointing fingers at each other publicly and sending out letters demanding this or that. I have been told that there will be a solution, maybe by close of business Friday as we tape at noon on Friday, or certainly very, very soon. But then we need to be totally organized because the cabinet selections so far announced by President Trump-elect show that we're going to have some real big things to fight about in the future. And we need to be organized as a party statewide and nationally to bring that fight to the floor.
Well, every party after a loss has to do some soul searching. We saw Republicans in 2020 also do this. So, Martha, your take on this?
Well, I think that one thing I would add to what you said, Theron, is that
I don't think it should be the leaders in a room. I think they need to start out by going and listening to some of these groups, then come back to that room. Because if they just go to leaders in the room, they're just going to talk about what they were talking about, and far be it from me to give Democrats advice, but they're going to be talking about what they were talking about instead of what they got wrong. And also, to be fair to Senator Ossoff, is that he intended that to be a private conversation. He intended it to do it the right way and give her the opportunity. She showed a great lack of trust and a breakdown in trust by it getting out. Now, whether she was totally at fault for that, I do not know, but she will be blamed for that, and it will hurt the trust situation there. And then finally, it's very difficult for a congresswoman to head up a Democratic Party like the Georgia Democratic Party. I think she's had some wins and some losses, but I think if she were to look in the mirror and tell the truth, it was too much for any one person to do.
What else do I say during media training, especially if you're a politician? Everything's on the record.
Everything's on the record.
I mean, there are no private conversations.
And truth be told,
Johnny Isaacson's rule.
the Democratic Party of Georgia had a lot of flaws long before Nikema Williams was elected chairwoman of the party. And so some of the problems the party has go back long before her leadership and are not solely attributed to her.
Phil, weigh in.
Well, I'm in favor of keeping her as chairman of the Georgia Democratic Party. There's some good Democratic congressmen. She's not one of them. She's also a terrible chairman. So let's keep her. There's a lot of flaws. There are going to be continuing to be flaws. Why did Trump sweep the state? Well, I think anybody could have been the chairperson of the Democratic Party because open borders didn't sell. We've got Venezuelan gangs all over the state, for example. We're talking about Lake and Riley later, inflation. You pointed out that, Trump got about 120,000 votes. The Republican Party coalition is holding. You've got Governor Kemp and President-elect Trump together. And so the Democratic Party has to figure out, are you going to at least try to go back to the center a little bit? I don't think they are. You've got an open socialist now in the legislature under a Democrat label. If they go to the center, they'll be more competitive with the Republicans, but I don't see that happening.
Well, there, I remember the Blue Dog Democrats.
I do remember Blue Dog Democrats. And Phil, you're going to say something I agree with you. I think we got to get back to the middle, and we got to start being elitists. Again, the conversation between Congresswoman Nikema Williams and Senator Ossoff should not have gone public. But I also agree, Martha, that there was just high time, high energy. But look at what just happened real quick this week. We've elected new leaders. I know Republicans elected their new leadership in the state, Democrats as well. You saw Carolyn Hughley, a woman who's run for this position 4 times, come in and usher in new leadership. Tanya Miller, who's now going to be the chair of the Democratic caucus. She defeated Billy Mitchell, who's a good man, DeKalb County. But it shows you that Democrats responded to this chaos. And I agree with Senator Warnock. It is a distraction. That's what he said. It's a distraction. But if you look at what's happening in the state Senate, in the state House, new leaders, Harold Jones coming on board, you're seeing the Democrats starting to sort of say, all right, we need change. We need new leadership.
All right. Well, Phil, back to you. So let's talk about Georgians who could be a part of the Trump administration. Melita had mentioned this topic. We've learned former Congressman Doug Collins has been nominated for Secretary of Veterans Affairs. Former Senator Kelly Loeffler will co-chair Trump's inaugural committee and will perhaps have another role in the future. Who else?
Well, I tell you what, there may be some others coming. I'm looking in the crystal ball, but I can't reveal it right now on the Georgia gang, sadly. But
you mentioned Josh McCoon in the Republican
Josh
circles.
McCoon, the state party chairman, is in the mix. He could be getting something. I know that there's other Republicans, top Republicans in this state are getting calls from Mar-a-Lago, from the president-elect. Maybe on next Sunday's gang, we'll be happy to talk some more Georgians. Yes, former Senator Kelly Loeffler is the woman of the hour in Georgia. Trump loves her, and it's she loves him, and she's co-chairing the inaugural committee. I don't know what she wants to do. I spoke with her. Lori, you were with me the other night. I don't know what she's going to do, but she's going to do a great job with the inaugural committee. I think it's a great pick for Doug Collins with Veterans Affairs. The late great Johnny Isaacson tried to do some reform. Trump, I know, is focused. A lot of veterans in Georgia that are hurting, veterans nationally hurting. We're giving more money to to illegal immigrants than we are our veterans. So I think Doug is going to be focused on that.
And I hope we'll focus on mental health when it comes to veterans, Martha.
Oh, absolutely. And I do think that we will do that. And I think that congratulations to Doug Collins, former Congressman Doug Collins. And it goes to show you that everything goes around, comes around. I mean, he and Kelly Loeffler will be working together on things in the Trump administration, I'm sure, and in all of that. And they worked very hard against each other. And that's what we have to be able to do, is that, you know, you may work against each other in certain situations, but you're going to come back together and we're going to all be on the same team. And the mental health portion of this is big, and I know we'll be talking about this later as it relates to Fulton County.
Okay, up next, the U.S. Department of Justice releases its disturbing report about conditions inside the Fulton County Jail. We'll discuss next.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Email them at georgiagang@foxtv.com.
We cannot turn a blind eye to the inhumane, violent, and hazardous conditions that people are subjected to inside the Fulton County Jail.
The United States Department of Justice has issued its report after opening a civil investigation into the conditions at the Fulton County Jail. Last year, the DOJ said it identified 313 stabbings and more than 1,000 assaults inside the jail, which currently houses around 2,000 people. Phil, Sheriff Pat Labatt said a lot of the issues are already being addressed, but these findings are nothing new.
No, they aren't, and the sheriff can only do so much. We've talked about this on the show. I don't how long we've been talking about it. It's a disgrace. For once, the Biden Justice Department got something right, and it's a horrible situation. In fact, Fonnie Willis, the Fulton County DA, of course, is to blame. How many people are languishing in there that shouldn't be there? They haven't. Some of them haven't been indicted. There's murderers there that have not gone to trial. There's probably over still 12,000 cases that are languishing, so it's a bottleneck. The jail gets it. And there's a footnote to this too. Some of the most violent murderers and gang members are being transferred from Fulton to stop the overcrowding over to Cobb County, over to Coney County, and these are really killers and horrible people. So we've talked about a Band-Aid, at least try to get some money. I don't know if a bond issue is going to work in Fulton County, but at least they've reduced from 3,000 to 2,000 inmates in a year.
Melita.
Well, it's good to hear you say, Phil, that the Biden Justice Department got something right in issuing this report, because as the as the federal attorney said, at the end of the day, people do not give up their constitutional rights when they walk into a jail, and particularly people who have not yet been convicted. So now the onus will be on the Trump administration, because there's a 49-day waiting period before anything else happens. And as you all remember, we also have a state corrections decision, state corrections issue as well, because there's an earlier report about the state prison system. So will the Trump administration, the second Trump administration, honor the constitutional rights of people in prisons and jails in this state and in this city?
So just, for full disclosure, my husband is the medical director at the Hall County Jail, and we provide not only medical but also mental health services for the Hall County Detention Center. And this is a big problem everywhere. The mental health aspect of this is gigantic, okay? And it's not only that whether Fulton County has the services, which that's part of it to be able to do it, but do they have the services to be able to follow these folks even after they leave, so they don't just come right back? And so there's such major issues as far as this is concerned. It's been coming for a long time. We've talked about it for a long time. It's time for a new jail, but I don't know if the taxpayers are willing to pay the money, and that's the problem.
Well, real quick, the one thing that I was happy to see, and Phil, you know this from talking to Chairman Pitts and also Sheriff Labatt, these two leaders have had their issues over how we move forward with the jail funding. The sheriff wants a new jail. The chairman is saying, hey, let's redevelop what we have. But they immediately said, and you, again, media training, we're going to comply. We're going to do everything that they outlined in the Justice Report. And they also noted, just for our listeners and our viewers, is that some of the things that they actually called on, the sheriff and the county had already started to put in place. And so while this report is not good, you do have two leaders coming together, along with other members of the community and the commission, to deal with some of these issues.
All right, well, the man accused of killing nursing student Laken Riley on the campus of UGA UGA has waived his right to a trial by jury. Instead, the fate of Jose Ibarra will be in the hands of Judge Patrick Haggard. That bench trial got underway Friday, Martha.
Yeah, I mean, it was gut-wrenching opening statements by the prosecution. I mean, I don't know how anybody could not listen to that and just be sickened by what they heard about the what happened to Laken Riley. And the evidence is overwhelming. Yes, it's more like waving a white flag, saying we're not going to have a jury trial. I think that this was in large part the reason why Deborah Gonzalez was defeated. That was an overwhelming kind of issue that was there. So, I mean, justice is going to come to this person, not the justice he should get because they did not go for the death penalty, but justice will come.
Darren.
You know, Laken Riley's death is a tragedy. And I agree with you, Martha, hearing those details and hearing folks in the Athens community. I got a chance to talk to Charles Bullock's class, Dr. Charles Bullock at UGA, and students pulled me to the side afterwards and made sure that me and others who were there were reminded that this was not only just a huge human tragedy that we had this death, but also, to your point, it spilled over into politics in Athens. And Athens is a city and a county right now divided over a lot of different issues, but this issue in particular, this tragic murder, this senseless murder, is definitely something that I hope that we can move on from. But I agree with you, Martha. I think justice needs to be served pretty swiftly to this individual.
And it looks like justice could be swift, Phil, with the bench
well,
trial.
I hope justice is swift. It's a shame that we can't get the death penalty because the killer of Laken Riley deserves the death penalty. We have it in the state. You have a liberal DA over there that didn't go for it. Typical, and it did go over into politics. The name of Laken Riley will be remembered in this tragedy because of Athens. Clark County, by the way, is a sanctuary city. They let in these people. They welcome. They don't know who they are. Venezuelan gangs. He lived in an apartment complex where a Venezuelan gang members were there. It's sickening. Under the Trump administration, there's going to be no sanctuary cities. I think you're going to see ICE going to go into these sanctuary cities, whether they're welcomed or not, and arrest and prosecute these people to the full extent of the law.
Melita, final word.
Well, to her credit, District Attorney Deborah Gonzalez called in Sheila Ross, one of the state's most veteran prosecutors of high-profile murder trials, and she is prosecuting this case from the Prosecuting Attorney's Council. So Deborah Gonzalez did the right thing by bringing in one of the state's leading experts for this case.
But she told the new prosecutor, don't go for the death penalty.
All right, we'll leave it there. Up next, Georgia gets a failing grade when it comes to premature births. We'll discuss next.
Join the discussion on the Georgia Gang Facebook page and watch past episodes on the Georgia Gang YouTube channel.
According to the March of Dimes, Georgia's maternal and infant mortality rates are some of the worst in the country. The organization gave Georgia an F when it comes to the rate of premature births. Melita.
Well, it's really a sad report. The entire South, from South Carolina over to Louisiana, gets a big red F mark, and then that's surrounded by a sea of orange Ds. And so we really have failed as southern states to address the underlying problems of not enough OBGYNs in rural areas, not enough prenatal care for moms, and these problems are connected also to maternal mortality, and the South needs to do something about it all across the South, not just Georgia.
So I'm going to be generous here, and I'm going to say the media and people with an agenda. The biggest lie that they tell women is that you have to have insurance to be able to go to the doctor. They tell us all that lie all the time, and that's one of the reasons why a lot of women put off prenatal care. Yes, your issues are exactly right that there aren't enough OBGYNs, and we need to address that. We're starting to do that with more spots and increasing, until we increase more medical school spots, increasing the residency spots won't help. Do you know what I mean? You got to have both. But the bottom line is, the biggest lie we tell people is you can't go to the doctor if you don't have insurance.
Well, the first question you get when you call the doctor is, what is your insurance? So it's intimidating.
There are 130 some Georgia's funded facilities that have prenatal care that you can go to, and it's no cost. But I know that's the first question they ask. But if you tell them you're pregnant or you think you're pregnant, they will get you in and they will figure out a way for you to pay.
Theron.
You know, as a person who really could have sat here and talked about a lot of issues that didn't come to the forefront in this presidential election year, the fact that Melita and Martha can have a sensible conversation about women's reproductive rights still after this election, the stats don't lie. We are the worst state when it comes to maternal mortality. Not pushing back on what you said, Martha, I think you made a really good point. But this is something as a husband, as a father, who has a wife, who has a sister, who has a aunt, who has a mother, who all have probably experienced some type of maternal mortality, whether it's postpartum or even during the pregnancy. I just think that this is a issue, a bipartisan issue. If Democrats and Republicans are looking for something to come together on, this is one of those many issues that we can unite as citizens of Georgia to make sure that we're not last place and a laughingstock in the nation when it comes to our dealing with maternal mortality.
All right, moving on. Atlanta City Council is considering shelling out more money for extra security at the Atlanta Police Training Facility, which is scheduled to open by the end of the year. Phil.
Well, the money is necessary. We've discussed on the show before, you've got these radicals that have been trying to destroy equipment. They're trying to stop the construction of the facility. I think that the popular attitude here in Metro Atlanta is we need this training facility for police and first responders. I think it's on track to open at the end of the year, thank goodness. It's a shame because of these vandals and the destruction that we've had to do the extra money, but it's well worth the money.
Farron.
Look, it's moving forward. The mayor, the police chief, the Cobb County CEO, Michael Thurman, the Cobb County commissioners, the private sector have all made a commitment to make sure that at this point you got to finish it. I agree with Phil. If there's more money needed to make sure that this is a first-in-class public safety training center that's going to make sure that not only serve our women and men in law enforcement as far as police, but also fire, emergency responders, let's make sure that we support these elected officials in the community to get it forward. Now, it is always tough, though, when you get this point, Lori, where you need more money and people can question where's the transparency, where's the process. But I would tell you, based on what we've seen so far, this is a big task, and I think they're definitely going to make sure that they finish it completely.
It's got to be first in class, but also safe. All
Correct.
right, talking about more money, a commission that looks into the salaries of Atlanta leaders is recommending a big pay boost for them. The commission recommends bumping the mayor's salary by almost $70,000 for an annual salary of $271,000. The commission also recommends bumping city-county salaries by $49,000. Melita?
Well, I think that we have to look at what the amount of time it takes for these part-time but really more full-time jobs. And we also, however, I think at the state level need to look at the fact that the governor makes $175,000 a year and that our state legislators make $22,000 a year. So if the city of Atlanta is seeing this need, the state perhaps should do the same kind of look at the salaries paid for part-time employees.
I disagree completely. I think that this should be a little difficult doing these kind of jobs. This should not be a job that you want to stay in for a long period of time or until you accrue retirement. It is a public service. Now, there are jobs that should get some salary. I think it's wrong that both our heads of our Democratic and Republican Party don't get salaries of some sort. I think that's wrong. But that's not paid for with taxpayer dollars, okay? And I think that in this inflationary time, maybe a 20% bump might make sense because we've had 20% of inflation, but this is a lot more than that.
Real quick, I agree with you. I think the Democratic Party chair position, as we wait to have, it should be paid. However, you would notice something here, right? A lot of people haven't really come out. You haven't seen these council members or the mayor come out and say we want this because I think they understand the sensitivity and where we are. However, if you look at the charter, the council members' positions was never created for it to be a full-time job. It allows people to work part-time and to have other lives and other careers. However, to Melita's point, they work very hard. This mayor, this council, when I tell you, be on the committee meetings, all the things they have to do in the community, I think they deserve it. How you do it and when you do it is the key and how the public feels about it. But if there's a study shows that they deserve it and it's comparable to other cities and mayors, then I think I'm for it.
All right, Phil, I got 10 seconds.
They knew what they were going to make when they ran, and so if they don't like the salary, get out. You know what? This is outrageous. We got the whole water infrastructure of the city of Atlanta has been failing, and you want to gouge them. I agree with you. This is far too much of a pay bump. So no, stop, vote no.
All right, coming up, winners and losers. Stay tuned.
Time now for the week's winners and losers.
All right, Melita.
Well, Phil had a lovely reception earlier in the
Yes,
week to celebrate the 20th anniversary of James Magazine, so congratulations to him. I want to make the Georgia Ports Authority a winner because they're utilizing $49 million in EPA money to electrify the ships who are docked there so that they're not using diesel fuel to pollute neighborhoods.
All right, Phil.
Well, thanks, Melita. Yeah, it was the 20th anniversary of my company,
It was great. Congrats
James
to Matt Towery,
Magazine.
too.
Yes, Matt Towery is the chairman, our longtime pollster at Fox 5, and we had Democrats, Republicans there. A tear came to my eye to see all these people. Josh McCoon, the state party chairman, is my winner too because he was very successful in organizing the alliance between the governor and the president-elect, and it resulted in victory.
Theron.
So I want to make sure I get Harold Jones in as the new leader of the Senate caucus and also Atlanta Parent. Others, I know it's a lot of leadership folks. I don't have enough time to mention your names. Also want to remind people, and Laura, I know it was in the topic list, we have a very, very important runoff coming up this election, City of Atlanta Post 3. Dr. Nikki Evans-Jones is running, and also school board member Isha Collins. And then lastly, also remind people that you have runoffs in DeKalb County as well, districts 3 and 7. I'll leave a little bit of time for my friend Martha, 30 seconds.
So, so winner this week, Doug Collins. I mean, we're always going to end up working together again. So Doug Collins and Joe Biden for that gracious meeting. I agree with Jim Gaffigan. He and Jill were secret Trump voters.
I wish y'all could weigh in on that, but we gotta go.
Smile on his face. Yeah.
All right, we will leave it there, folks. Have a great week. We will see you again next week. Bye-bye.